The Shadows of the Cross, the Catholic Church, and the Rwandan Genocide. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, True Crime Morals, your go-to source for gripping true crime stories, deep dives into unsolved mysteries, murder cases, chilling criminal investigations, and many other crime stories, giving valuable moral lessons on safety measures. Each week we explore the dark and twisted world of real-life crimes, from notorious serial killers to cold cases that have haunted investigators for decades. With in-depth crime analysis, detailed timelines, and expert commentary, we bring you the facts behind the headlines. Ensure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell, share to stay updated with all our grueling true crime stories. Watch till the end and remember to leave a comment on how we can improve and make this channel more gripping and interesting for you. Today we will listen and dissect the most grueling genocide in the history of humanity, the Rwandan Genocide, taking a cursory look at the role of the Catholic Church in that dastardly event, and the repercussions for those involved, drawing immense moral lessons on humanity and need for justice and avoidance of classism when interacting with all levels of human strata. The 1994 Rwandan Genocide remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, an event in which nearly 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were brutally massacred in a span of just 100 days. While the government and Hutu militias orchestrated and executed most of the killings, the complicity of the Catholic Church remains one of the most unsettling aspects of this atrocity. Many Tutsis, believing in the sanctity and protection of the Church, sought refuge in places of worship, hoping that their faith and religious leaders would shield them from harm. Instead, they found betrayal. The Catholic Church, which had deep ties with Rwanda's colonial past and the Hutu-led government, played an active role in the mass killings. Priests, nuns, and bishops, who were supposed to be beacons of hope, turned into harbingers of death. Among the worst offenders were Father Athanasi Seromba, sisters Gertrude Mukangango and Maria Kisito, and influential figures like Vincent Ntezimana and Alphonse Higaniro. One of the most infamous massacres took place at the Nyange Catholic Church in western Rwanda. Thousands of Tutsi men, women, and children had taken refuge in the church, seeking sanctuary from the rampaging Hutu militias. Instead of offering protection, Father Athanasi Seromba betrayed them. When the Interahamwe militia arrived at the church, Father Seromba not only allowed them inside, but also provided the names of Tutsi parishioners. As the killing began, he took it a step further. He ordered the demolition of the church with the Tutsis still inside. A bulldozer was brought in, and with his approval, the walls of the church came crashing down, burying thousands of innocent people alive. Those who managed to crawl out of the rubble were swiftly executed by the waiting militias. Father Seromba would later claim that he had no choice, that he was merely following orders. But testimonies from survivors paint a different picture. He was an eager participant in the mass murder, a man who chose allegiance to the Hutu extremists over the sanctity of his faith. In 2006, he was convicted of genocide and sentenced to life imprisonment, but the ghosts of Nyange Church still haunt Rwanda to this day. The involvement of the Catholic Church was not limited to priests. Sisters Gertrude Mukangango and Maria Kisito, both nuns at the Sovu convent in southern Rwanda, actively assisted the Hutu extremists in identifying Tutsis hiding within the convent walls. Initially, Tutsis believed the nuns would shield them. They were wrong. Sister Gertrude reported the presence of Tutsi refugees to the Hutu militias. When the killers arrived, she refused to provide water or food to the terrified men, women, and children inside the convent, ensuring they were weakened before the attack. The convent soon became a slaughterhouse, with the nuns handing out gasoline used to burn people alive. Sister Maria Kisito personally handed out jerrycans of petrol to the militia, ensuring the buildings sheltering Tutsis were set ablaze with people still inside. Over 7,000 Tutsis were murdered at the convent. The cruelty of the nuns left even hardened killers astonished. When questioned about their actions later, they claimed they had no control over the situation. Yet survivors testified that they watched in horror as these supposed women of faith stood idly by, watching the massacre unfold. After the genocide, the two nuns fled to Belgium, where they were later arrested, tried, and sentenced to 15 and 12 years in prison, respectively. but no prison sentence could undo the horror of their betrayal. The Rwandan genocide was not only carried out with machetes and guns, it was also executed through propaganda and careful planning. Vincent Ntezimana, a university professor, and Alphonse Higaniro, a businessman and former minister, were two intellectuals who used their influence to fuel the flames of ethnic hatred. Vincent Ntezimana, a respected professor, utilized his position to compile lists of Tutsi students and faculty members who were later hunted down and murdered. Instead of using education as a tool for enlightenment, he turned it into a weapon of destruction. His speeches encouraged the killing of Tutsis, painting them as enemies of Rwanda who needed to be exterminated. Alphonse Higaniro, on the other hand, used his business empire to supply weapons to the Interahamwe militia. His factories were transformed into arms depots, providing the very machetes that were used to hack Tutsis to death. When the genocide began, he ensured that his businesses contributed to the logistical operations of the slaughter. Both men were later arrested and convicted for their roles in the genocide, but their actions left scars on an entire nation. Before the genocide, Rwanda was a predominantly Catholic country, with over 65% of the population identifying as Catholic. However, the Church's role in the genocide shattered the faith of many. How could the very institution that preached love, forgiveness, and compassion turn into an accomplice to genocide? Thousands of Rwandans left the Catholic Church in the years following the genocide, seeking solace in Protestant churches, Islam, or even abandoning religion altogether. The Vatican has been slow to acknowledge the Church's role in the genocide, and while individual priests and nuns have faced justice, the institution itself has never been held fully accountable. The complicity of the Catholic Church in the Rwandan genocide serves as a painful reminder of what happens when religious institutions become entangled with politics and hate. For the Tutsis who perished in the very churches they trusted, and for the survivors who live with the nightmares of betrayal, the wounds remain fresh. While Rwanda has made strides in rebuilding itself, the memories of 1994 linger in every corner of the country. The ruins of churches like Nyange stand as grim memorials to the thousands who perished within their walls. The world must never forget how faith was weaponized to commit one of the worst crimes against humanity. As the nation continues its path toward reconciliation, the question remains: can true forgiveness ever exist when the hands that held the cross were the same ones that opened the doors to death?